right. Well, welcome everybody to ACBC Victoria's online training program with the wonderful Sandi Givens from Psychological Safety Works. I'm Virginia Birrell, the CEO of ACBC Victoria. Sandi's a highly experienced presenter and in the areas of workplace practices and mental health. And her journey is one that's both personal and professional. So she brings us a unique perspective for leading teams and during this current pandemic. So we're really pleased to be able to support you because we know everyone is going through a very challenging and confronting time at the moment. So we hope today's session will be very positive for you. It'll give you a pathway through this and hopefully give you some skills for coming out the other end. We will be able to ask questions as we go along. So as well as introducing Sandi to you, I should introduce Madison, who will be moderating the questions for us. So over to you, Sandi.
Okay, thank you, Virginia. Goodness me, you've given me such a big rap. I feel like I have a lot to live up to. And everyone online with us today, I did not write that introduction. Virginia mentioned that I have a personal connection with the issues surrounding mental health. So to give you an idea of what those are and therefore what perspective I bring to this conversation today, I went through postnatal depression some 25 years ago when my son was born. And yeah, I was in denial. I was diagnosed, but I told the doctor, no, I'm just tired. And long story short, clearly I recovered from that. And that gave me this experience of someone going through a mental health condition. More recently, that I've been through PTSD, which brought not only depression, but anxiety as a part of that experience. And sadly, a very long time ago, my brother chose to end his own life. So I have the experience of someone who's lost a loved one to suicide. And I was thankfully in the right place about 6 years ago when Beyond Blue were looking for a skilled facilitator to run workshops on their behalf. And it filled my heart with joy, and it also broke my heart with grief. At the end of every session, people would take turns coming to talk to me, and I heard the most heart-wrenching stories of burdens that people had carried for decades around mental health situations, either with themselves or in their families. So I am really on a mission to not only create more safety for people in talking about mental health issues, but to hopefully save a few lives during my lifetime. So that's my background, and that's why when Virginia contacted me, I said, oh, I would love to help. So today you can see on this slide, we're particularly focused at helping employers who now have a range of staff working remotely in their own homes. And what we're going to look at in this session, very briefly touch on your legal responsibilities in this new work environment, with full, important that you know, I am not a lawyer. So I'm going to give you some guidelines that have come from Safe Work Victoria, etc. And how you as an employer can set expectations of your team while they work from home, how to stay connected, and this really is far more important than it used to be in our physical person-to-person working world. And how do we move from that old model to this new model, which is clearly with us for a while? And finally, I want to make sure you have some resources and strategies to maintain your mental well-being, because you're the captain of the ship. And we want to make sure you stay well so that you can be your best for all the people around you. So we remember pictures like this, hopefully, in our physical workplaces, where people would frequently gather together and laugh and enjoy each other. And sadly, even in that person-to-person, mortar and brick world of offices, we know that millions of Australians, in fact, 3 million Australians, are living with a mental health condition today. And I feel that these conditions and symptoms are simply going to sadly get worse with the effects of isolation, etc. So we've been through a lot of changes, and none of us have a crystal ball about how long this will last or whatever. So we're going to look at today. What can we do today with what we know today? And as I mentioned, we'll start with your legal responsibilities. And I've given credit to King & Wood Ballason's international law firm, who I understand are one of the ACBC members. But I found this information from their website, published as recently as a couple of weeks ago. So the first point is for employers to understand that as far as reasonably practical, ensure the health and safety of your workers. WorkSafe or Fair Work Victoria have come out and said all of your obligations in the person-to-person work world we had still apply. So your duty of care to look after people's physical and mental safety still applies in our new work world. It's important for employers to remind employees they also have a responsibility, that we all have to step up to the plate and take responsibility for the fact that we're making sure we have breaks frequently and that we do get outside and get some fresh air and that we are exercising and that we're doing everything as employees to look after ourselves as well. So remind your staff about that. Thirdly, employers need to work with employees cooperatively to ensure that the remote workplace is as safe as possible in all circumstances. Now, obviously, that gets more complex when someone's working from home as they are with their partner, and perhaps they have some young kids there. Perhaps they're also trying to juggle homeschooling at the moment. So as practical as possible, looking at both physical and mental safety for your workers in their home and having that one-on-one conversation with them. And it's critical that employers do what can be reasonably practically applied to ensure that mental health of employees through this period is maintained, good mental health. And quite honestly, the best way to do that is simply to have regular check-ins with them. So I'll talk about that more a little bit later on. In Australia, our workplace health and safety laws still apply if workers work somewhere other than their usual workplace, for example, from their home. So some things for you to remember to do. First of all, maintain that daily communication with workers. Now, maybe you have an organization structure and the number of staff that doesn't enable you to talk to each and every employee every day. And that would be fully understandable, but please make sure this message trickles down into your senior leadership team and your management team so that everybody is connecting with someone from your organization every day. Provide continued access to your employee assistance program. And I've found a few of the clients I'm working with have never heard of an EAP before. And fundamentally what an EAP is a company that provides an anonymous and separate advisory or counseling or listening service to your employees. Now, even pre our new work world, there could be hundreds of things that your employees get stressed or worried about. And these employee assistance providers, they don't limit the discussions with your staff around only work-related issues. It could be somebody is upset and concerned about the fact that their partner has lost their job or that their child is very sick and they just need to talk to someone to kind of release some of the tension that they're experiencing. So EAPs provide that independent, detached, anonymous and confidential service to companies. And I was talking with Virginia yesterday, and I know she and I will talk further about who some of these organizations are and how you might avail yourselves of the services they offer. I'd also highly suggest that, or strongly suggest, and this, as you can see, is coming from Safe Work Australia, appoint a contact person in the business that workers can talk to about any concerns. Because there may actually be work-related processes that people are now struggling with, that they just need a go-to person, where that go-to person might say, oh, well, we know that Alice in IT is working on that. Here's how you get in touch with her. So and again, depending on the size of your organization, you might have to have several of those contact people in different streams of your operations. The real risks, the workplace health and safety risk in working from home, or what we now refer to as WFH, I'm going to outline for you here, and then I'll go back and go through some of them individually. Again, you'll see on this slide, I'm reminding you the importance of talking to your staff one-on-one. There is this issue of isolation and how that may impact people. The fact that job demands may have gone crazy through the roof, or they may have gone to basically nothing. So you've still got employees, you're waiting for your job keeper financial support to come in from the government, and employees are feeling like, well, I'm getting paid, I should be doing something, but what can I do? And that in and of itself is a stress to many people. There is reduced social support from managers and colleagues alike. There's a general fatigue that comes from, I mean, I hear somebody's talking about screen fatigue now, that we're all staring at these screens all day long. And there is genuinely a physical fatigue that arises from that. There has been, sadly, some increase in reporting of online harassment, not from particular companies, and certainly if I knew them, I wouldn't quote them anyway or mention them. But that's something to be aware of that can be hard to detect and go on behind the scenes. And sadly, we know that calls to the family violence support line in the last week or so have gone up enormously. So there's all sorts of tensions in the home now that weren't there previously, weren't there 2 or 3 or 4 weeks ago. And those are things that can impact your employees. So I want to talk with you about the challenges inherent in remote work. And I've got a few notes written down about this, and I don't want to forget anything, so I'm going to refer to the notes I've written here. The first one to talk about is the lack of face-to-face contact. And on the one hand, we kind of go, yeah, well, that's obvious. But it's actually more than that, because typically when an employee is working remotely, employers can get a bit edgy and twitchy about, well, are they really being as productive as they could be or should be? And similarly, employees start to feel that there's less support and there's less help coming from their manager. And in fact, without contact from their direct line manager, they can feel like, oh, well, I don't even really matter to the organization. So there's two sides of that coin that comes from that lack of, and I'm going to change this slide if I use it again in future, because we're doing face-to-face now, essentially. So it's really in-person contact that we're talking about, that lack of in-person contact. Now, the next one's, again, when we stop to think about it, we think, well, that makes sense. If Virginia, Maddie and I all worked together in one physical office, and I needed some information that I knew Virginia had, I would probably get up and go over and say, hey, Virginia, have you got the fourth quarter results from last year? And, you know, we get it settled pretty quickly. But of course, what's happening now is a lot of people are reporting that it's taking so much longer and taking so much more effort to get answers to even very simple questions. And I know myself that my ability to contact my clients right now has really shrunk because everybody's busy with these scheduled video conference calls now. So that lack of easy access to information can really get frustrating for people and can actually slow productivity down in an understandable way. It's not because your employees are being lazy. The reduced mutual knowledge, this one is key. So I'll go back to the example of the three of us on the screen there. We all work together in a physical office. And Maddie's arrived at work today sort of muttering under her breath about, oh, the childcare, that, you know, place where I take my kids was putting a new policy in place, and they wanted to explain it to me right then and there. And I told them, no, I had to get to work. What she's actually talking about is, on the one hand, irrelevant. But working in the same physical environment, I have overheard her either muttering to herself or talking to another colleague about that frustration she's just had this morning. So what that means is I'm very aware of her state. I'm aware of her state of mind and where she's coming from today. So if I happen to get an email that seems a bit abrupt or a bit sort of almost rude, I'm going to give her the benefit of the doubt. I'm going to bring some grace to the conversation and be more relaxed about it because I've got context to draw on. I understand her context. But clearly in our virtual and remote work world now, we don't have those shared contexts. When I get an email from somebody, I might go, whoa, you know, that seems a bit abrupt. I thought we had a good relationship. So it tends to leave people not giving others the benefit of the doubt. And that's where frustrations can start to build and start to fester. All the more important then that peer-to-peer contact stays very strong during this time. One of the things I highly suggest is you to think about when your employees all worked in one physical space, and to think about, were there natural friendships between people, or natural trusting relationships between people, where you'd often notice they were having a coffee together or whatever. It would be really good to put in a buddy system right now. So hopefully between people who already have a friendship or that trusting relationship of some sort. And so those two people make agreements with each other. How often and by what means will they connect to each other? I'd suggest certainly in the early stages daily, and even if it's by text or email. And eventually making sure there is some commitment to phone contact and maybe even the video conference call. So setting up a buddy system can help reduce the impact of this reduced mutual knowledge. Social isolation. Most of you, I imagine, will have heard that there's a lot of personality profiling systems around, and we're often hear about this term extrovert and introvert. And when I've run workshops in the past, and I say, well, so what do those two terms mean? People say, oh, they're the party people, and they're the people who are like hermits, and they just stay by themselves. And I want to emphasize to you that that is not at all what those two terms are about. These two terms are about, where does someone get their energy? How do they become energized? So someone who is more extroverted or outgoing actually gets their energy from other people, from places, from background noise. And I'll put my hand up and say, yes, I'm an extrovert. And when in the former world, when I was delivering services for clients, I was at the client's offices. And any work I was doing from home was, of course, development and admin and that sort of thing. And often I'd think, oh, it's a bit quiet and I'm tired of listening to the radio or my music. So I'd take my laptop to a cafe and have a lovely coffee while I continued to work. Because as an extrovert, just that extra sort of background noise energized me. Now, the more introverted people or more reserved people get their energy from within themselves. So you might say, oh, okay, isolation is not a problem for the introverts. Please don't make that mistake, because it's still a problem for them. What I'm saying is, you might find the more introverted or reserved people can acclimatize to this new remote work more easily and readily than the more extroverted people can. And for both extroverts and introverts, human beings deep down within us have a huge need for belonging. And so you want these people to still feel they belong to your family, they belong to your business family. And so looking at how we stay connected is an important issue, which I'll come to shortly. The final thing, of course, is the practical aspects of potentially partners, kids, pets being around, which can be wonderful distractions and can be great for our mental health as well. And at the same time, recognize that some of your team members working from home may not have enough space in their home to have a dedicated work corner. And if that's the case, maybe talk with them about how perhaps the company could assist them by buying some sort of petitioning just to put around the corner of the lounge room or something. But it's important for your employees to understand that perhaps as a family, they need to sit down and talk about the new rules around the house in terms of quiet time and noisy time. So all of those things are things that are important for leaders and business owners to be aware of, and work individually with their staff in terms of helping their staff deal with those challenges. As a business owner or manager, I want to help you manage your expectations of your staff. One of the things that research has already shown from people working remotely prior to our new world is that often when people are working remotely and we give them a task, they can perform better and be more productive and be more committed to the task if they're given a reason for the task, or if you help them understand where it fits into the overall puzzle. because again, we don't have that shared mutual knowledge anymore. So I'd encourage you, particularly if you're giving new tasks to staff, help them understand where it fits in and why it is still of value and important to your organization. Make sure you have some clear measures of success. And that would include things like deadlines, absolute fixed deadlines. And also, you know, when you ask me for a report that I've never done before, are you talking about a 4-page sort of dot-pointed report, or a full 20-page report that has a table of contents, etc.? As well as the deadline, it'll be helpful if I know those kind of specifics. Please, if you can, focus on the outcome. So again, if you've got me to do a report and you've been clear, it needs to be 4 pages covering 3 headings with dot points under each. We can both talk about the estimated time I think it will take me to do that. And as I suggested before, if you give me a deadline of it needs to be done Thursday, 5 o'clock, let's focus on me getting it done by the deadline rather than exactly how many hours it takes me to do it. Because of all those other issues I've just spoken to you about, what if I need some information from Virginia to finish the report, and she's gotten tied up providing information to other people as well? There's going to be a delay in all this getting information going back and forth between our inboxes. Make sure your employees have the tools they need to do the tasks that you're asking them. And as I say, allow for flexibility. There may be some of your staff that say, look, I am trying to homeschool a couple of kids here. It's easier for me to get up early in the morning and do, 3 or 4 hours of work from 6 to 9 or 10 a.m. and then focus on schooling my kids. Then I can do another couple of hours in the afternoon, and then I'll do the rest after 8 o'clock at night. We need to be flexible to help our employees through this. So what can leaders do? These structured daily check-ins that I've mentioned, and when I say visual, I mean in a medium like this, whether it's FaceTime or a video conferencing or something. The thing about the check-ins is that I encourage you to make sure they are regular and predictable. So, okay, I know I have a check-in with Maddie every day at 10, or every second day at 10 o'clock, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And that's what I mean by structure. Making it predictable for me will give me some sense of security, some sense of the known, because we're all working in such an unknown world right now. You being able to give me that security will be incredibly helpful to me. I know a lot of managers previously who said, my staff know I have an open door policy. My door is always open. And even in our physical work world, our in-person work world, I have always felt a bit uncomfortable with that phrase, because what it does is put the responsibility on the staff to come see you, rather than the leader or the manager being proactive in going to see them. And in you being proactive in making these daily check-ins, you're showing you care. You're not leaving your staff wondering, guessing, would now be a good time to send the boss an email or a text about something. So make it predictable and make it regular. Another thing here, providing the different communication options. So some people love reading emails. Some people would rather, have a phone call. Other people really would like this face-to-face contact. So again, that's a good thing to work out with each of your employees. And all of that really relates to what I call rules of engagement. So it might be beneficial now and helpful to you all to decide, even within individual teams, for what purposes do we use email? For what purposes is it okay to text each other? For what purposes would we be best calling each other? And for what purposes do we need to get on video conferencing? So that's what I mean by rules of engagement. And if you are the manager with a team of people, I urge you to set something in place that says, look, please communicate with me throughout the day by email or whatever your preferred form is. And if it's something urgent that needs a response within the next 60 minutes or 30 minutes, whatever time frame you want to give, please send me a text starting with the words urgent. That will streamline your communication enormously, because everybody understands how to deal with what form of communication to use in different circumstances. Provide remote social interaction. I'm going to talk a lot more about that shortly. So let me just leave it at that at the moment, because I'm going to tell you some ways of doing that. And please know that encouragement and support right now are not optional. I think I was talking to Maddie and Virginia earlier that, are we people who like making a quick decision? My answer is yes. Are we people who like solving problems? Yes. That's our challenge now, because what we have trained ourselves really well to do really well is to listen, to be able to reply. So as somebody's talking with us, and even maybe as we're reading their email, we're already thinking in our head, okay, how am I going to fix this? How am I going to reply? And what that's doing is stopping us from listening fully. Stephen Covey, author of 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, said one of his habits was seek first to understand, then to be understood. And we really need to do that now. So when we're offering encouragement and support, please make sure you're using heightened listening skills. And if you're using a visual medium like we are today, learn to listen with your eyes as well. I've been doing some one-on-one coaching online, and one of the things I've done is ask the person on the other end to adjust their webcam. Because, for instance, the other day I had one person on with me like that. And yes, they were there, but this wasn't helpful to me in terms of being able to get information from their full facial expressions and their body language and how they were sitting. So even be prepared to do that with people in helping them adjust the webcam so that you can help them the best you can. So let's talk about some strategies to stay connected to your team and combat isolation. We have this saying, try before you buy. Well, I'm now saying to people, try before you sigh. And what I mean by that is, I might bring up an idea here and you might go, oh, that's going to be hard to do. Or, oh, that's going to be, that's not going to work in our environment. And I encourage you to try it before you sigh about it and toss it in a bin. So the first one I'm going to suggest is virtual coffee breaks. Now, whether it's on the phone or on a video conferencing platform, schedule these. I was doing this. I've been doing this for years because I got rather tired. A lot of people would say, oh, let's catch up for a coffee. And I might spend a half hour driving in my car to a cafe where it was really hard to hear anyway. And then we'd have an hour conversation, then a half hour home. And I think, that's not a good investment of our time, nor is it good for the environment, hopping in the car all the time. So I'd just say, sure, when can we do a virtual one? And so we'd put it on our diaries, just like we were connecting in person. And we'd both arrive with our cup of coffee already made, and we'd do it on a visual platform like this. Highly recommend you get that going in your organization, again, maybe in team structures or in the buddy partnerships that you set up. I'm sorry, I don't know the technical mechanism that a company has used to do this, but I read online the other day that they have set up a dedicated water cooler channel. And what they're using it for is for people to type things in that they would normally chat about when they went to the water cooler or the staff kitchen to make a cup of coffee or warm up their lunch in the microwave. So there's comments on there like, hey, how are you coping without the football? God, I really miss my team. There might be other things that are just funny things that people have seen around Facebook now. So it's non-work. My point here is this is a channel that is dedicated to non-work related things, where people can still have those sort of relaxed chats with each other. I think it's a brilliant idea, absolutely brilliant. In fact, one of my clients, every Wednesday from 12 to 1, they have face-to-face lunch together. They're a fairly small team within a big organization. And the only rule is you cannot talk about work and you cannot talk about COVID-19. You can talk about COVID-19 if you're upset about something with it right now, like you've just read something on the news and you need to debrief it or something. But generally what they do is talk about this water cooler kind of conversation, which once a week for an hour having lunch together, I think is just brilliant. The concept of side-by-side working, another one I think is just brilliant. Let's suppose Madison and Virginia and I have noticed that we're all getting kind of fatigued and we're not as productive as we'd like to be. So what we do is set up a video conference connection like we've done today. And we might say, look, we're going to do this for 2 hours. All right. And what happens is, even out of the corner, and we're not going to talk, even out of the corner of my eye, I can see them on the screen. There's something reassuring about that. Oh, there's still human beings in the world. My colleagues are still around. So we might say at the start of our 2 hours, look, let's all work, head down for an hour, and then we'll have a 5-minute break. And we'll chat with each other, or maybe a 7-minute break and make a cup of tea or whatever. But then we'll get back into it for the last hour. And again, I assure you, whether they're extroverted or more introverted people, just the visual out of the corner of your eye to know that other human beings are there is a really useful strategy. Of course, Friday happy hours, we can do this online now with video conferencing facilities. I'm participating in a Friday happy hour that has very quickly, well, the first time we ran it, we realized we were all just sort of sitting around and saying, well, what have you been doing? No, not much. What have you been? Because we're not out doing the social things we used to do. So someone suggested that we turn it into a karaoke Friday night session. And that's what we're doing. And it's hilarious. We're easily on there for 2 hours, and someone will look at the time and go, oh my gosh, I got to go make dinner. So we need to bring the best of our creative selves to our new world, to make these things happen, to find new and interesting ways of creating this connection between people in your company who still very much want to belong. They want to feel very much part of the team. I'm sorry. Oh, I don't know what happened there. You still, Virginia and Maddie, you still seeing my screen all right? Yes, no? Oh, hang on. You're muted. Can you unmute? Can you unmute yourselves?
I can.
Okay.
Yes, I can. Everything's fine.
Okay, so you're not seeing extra text coming up at the bottom of the
Just see
screen.
a bit of dictation down the bottom.
Yes, so I don't even know, I inadvertently clicked somewhere that made it do that. So we'll just pretend it's not there because I don't know how to get rid of it. So you can still see my slides and
Yes.
our webcams, yeah?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Terrific. We'll soldier on. So I want to talk with you, with everyone generally, about communication. In our person-to-person world, we have 3 tools that we use when we're communicating. We have the actual words that we say. We have the way we say the words, so things like how fast we're talking or maybe how slowly we're talking, our tone and pitch. All of those things are the way the words are being expressed. And then there's this really big area of what people see, what's in their field of vision. Now, remember, in the person-to-person world, I might be having a chat with Virginia, and still in my peripheral vision, I can see things happening in the office. I can see people laughing or, tossing a ball between each other or whatever. See, all of that goes into how I'm processing communication between Virginia and myself. So now we don't have that person-to-person world, but we do have face-to-face. So what people are seeing in the webcam now is what's really important, because when we look at how a listener is deriving meaning from your communication, you'll see from this chart, which isn't hard, fast science here, but research has been done to suggest definitely the relative size of each of these communication tools is absolutely accurate, that a very small percentage of the meaning of our communication is coming from our words. A larger percent is coming from how we say those words. And then a huge amount is coming from what people are seeing. Now, we can't see your webcams, And so we'll do this, and I'll trust the process. So you see what happens at your end. But I'd like to demonstrate this to you. If you could follow along with me, if you could make your right hand free and just pop your right hand up in the air for the moment. And then if you could put that right hand on your left shoulder, on the opposite shoulder. And then if you could put it over onto the other shoulder and on top of your head and on your nose and on your chin. Now, some people have gone out here. Now, we'll never know because we can't see all the participants on the webcam. And if you did go out here, I said, put it on your nose and on your chin. And you said, well, I did that because that's what you did, Sandi. That is exactly my point. That when a listener's brain is confused about what's the real message here, they will always be driven by, invariably, I should say, not always, but invariably driven by what they see. They get more meaning from what is seen. And there's a whole lot of science around why that happens. It's because of what our right brain and our left brains are processing, etc. I would be curious if in your question or chat panel, you can type in and Maddie can see what comes up, whether you went to your ear or to your chin. But that is the point that I'm wanting to make here. So when we look about communication in our new world, we've got video calls, which of course give us all three of those elements to communicate with. Then we've got the phone, where we no longer have the visual cues to get. And then we've got text or email, where we have no tone of voice to go with it as well. And so looking at communication in our new working world, the greatest level of effectiveness can be achieved at that far right-hand end, where we're still using the three tools at our disposal that we had in the person-to-person world. So I encourage you to think about using those ideas and those principles when you think about your rules of engagement of communicating within your organization. And certainly make sure you're doing the really important mission critical things via video call, and that you're doing the check-ins with people via video call at least once a week. I also want to make sure that I spend some time talking about looking after yourself, because as I mentioned before, you're the captain of the ship. A lot of you who are on here who are leaders and part of your senior management team, your staff are relying on you to stay well as well. And I often say to people, you know, the airlines have been teaching us this for years, that in the safety instructions, they always say, fit your own oxygen mask first. Because they don't want people without oxygen masks kind of lurching around the plane trying to help other people when they themselves are deprived of oxygen. So I want you to put some serious thought into, what is your oxygen mask? What are your decompression strategies? What are the things you need to do for yourself to keep yourself mentally and physically fit? Now, there's a strong correlation between physical and mental fitness. Well, not so much fitness, but looking after yourself physically and mentally. Proven beyond belief through studies and through my own experience, I can assure you that if I'm feeling a bit low or even if I'm a bit tired, but if I start to feel like I'm in a low mood, I know that even 10 minutes of some form of movement is going to help me mentally as well. Now, all the better if I can say, right, during my lunch break, I'm going for a half-hour walk around my neighborhood. Even putting music on for 10 minutes and just moving to the music, or doing some stretches of some sort for 10 minutes. Because what you're going to be doing through that movement in your neurology, through that movement, you're releasing endorphins, you know, the happy hormone, but you're also releasing dopamines in the brain. So you're changing your chemical mixture in your body, and therefore changing what we call your neurology, your neurological makeup. And that's going to help your mood an awful lot. So I'm personally, quite honestly, I have a list on my wall just here of all of my oxygen mask activities. Some of them take 3 to 5 minutes to do. Some of them take 3 hours to do. So they're the things I look forward to doing at night time or on the weekends. But make your oxygen mask list and make sure you refer to it and use it. Another principle I've been talking to people about a lot is, again, thanks to Stephen Covey that he told us about this. He said, you know, throughout our lives, we always have two circles that we can operate in. And the first circle is the circle of concern. Now, the circle of concern has a whole bunch of stuff up there. You know, it may be some of what we've got on here, on the screen here. Although someone said to me the other day, oh, I hadn't even thought about the homeless. Now you've given me something else to be concerned about. And that's not my intention whatsoever. I want you to look at these things and ask yourself personally, can you do anything about that? Except for perhaps our children's education. If you're homeschooling, of course, you continue to do that. But can we do anything about the situation overseas? Can we do anything about finding a cure? Me personally, can I do anything personally to make sure our health system is working well? And of course, the answer to that is no. And what I'd like you to realize is that this circle of concern is like a basketball. It's big. And if any of you are like me, you often have these thoughts going through your mind not all the time, thank goodness, but a lot of the time. You know, I might just quickly read a post on Facebook or hear something on the radio, and then my mind can go spiraling off into this circle of concern where I am totally frustrated and overcome with worry and anxiety. Particularly now, and when we find ourselves doing that, what we need to do is focus on our circle of control. So whereas our circle of concern is like a basketball, the circle of control is a tennis ball, or it might even only feel like a table tennis ball right now. There's still some things there that we can control. Some things there that are within our power to control. And what I'm suggesting to people is that when you operate and stay within your circle of control, your sense of calm and your feeling capable and being able to be proactive will be increased and will be strengthened. So while we're out here, though, we're ineffective. We're not actually productive, and we're actually sapping ourselves of energy that is very precious and needs to be used on other things right now. Again, I was sharing with someone recently the fact that I've learned to become really good at not having an opinion. And they said, what do you mean? Well, I'm normally the sort of person that likes to have an opinion about things, that I like to do research and get facts from all different sources and then form an opinion and be able to express that if I want to and be able to substantiate my opinion. What I'm learning now is not to have an opinion. And the example what made me realize this was the other day I was talking to my sister, and she was, you know, getting very wound up about something she was concerned about. And I was listening to her. And after a while, I realized, I haven't said anything for a while. So I said, yeah, Kim, I am listening. It's just that I don't have an opinion about that. And she said, what? Why don't you have an opinion? I said, because I haven't got the energy to right now. It's not something I can have any influence over. And I'm okay with not having an opinion. And I hear it's really bugging you. So, you know, go on. I'm happy. I really am happy listening. So although that perplexed her a little bit, it did give me an opportunity to talk to her about what's inside her table tennis ball or her tennis ball to help her manage those feelings and symptoms of frustration. It also relates very much to something that I like to call, or that many people call, I should say, mindfulness. Now, a lot of people, when they hear of the term mindfulness, they think of meditation. They need to go into or sit with their fingers, you know, in a circle like that. And mindfulness, its main premises is to be in the present. So to rather than have your mind spiral off and be thinking about 100 things at once and not effectively taking action on any of that, how can we be present, focused? And the saying I heard a few years ago, which has helped me enormously for the last several years, is this one. Be where your feet are. Now, obviously, this is a rhetorical question on my part. And my question to all of you with us today is, in the last 45, 50 minutes, how many times has your mind wandered off? How many times have thoughts come into your head about, oh, I must remember to do that, or, oh, that's important, oh, I'm worried about that? And I imagine it's happened quite a few times. Now, what I do, if these things are coming into my mind that I know are actually things, oh, I am responsible for doing that, I want to do that, and I want to make sure I remember it, I grab a paper and I write it down so that I can keep track of it. If there are things I can't control and can't do anything about, and they're just distractions at the moment, I pull myself back and say, Sandi, be where your feet are. And you see, right here in this session with you, my feet are below my chair. My chair is facing my laptop, and I'm in this session with you. So all of those thoughts are things that are detracting me or distracting me from being present with you right now. And they don't belong here. I mean, ask Virginia, she knows me quite well. I tend to be a little bit crazy, and sometimes, especially living alone, I'll talk to my thoughts out loud, and I'll say, you go over there and sit down. I'll deal with you later. And it makes me sort of chuckle at myself, because we can all use a chuckle at the moment for sure. However you choose to apply it to yourself, take up the challenge. Commit to being where your feet are every moment of the day. So if you're playing with your kids, play with your kids and tell all the other thoughts to go away. If you're doing work, you're doing work. If you're eating lunch, eat lunch. Don't work. Oh, we all used to, work through lunch at our desk. Yeah, back in the physical work world. Definitely not a good idea now. I urge you to make sure you have a break of at least 30 minutes away from your screen. Away from your screen, doing whatever you want to do. Read a bit of your book, watch a bit of your TV, go for a walk around your garden. 30 minutes minimum lunch break. I'd love to make you promise me that. Now, because of time, I needed to be I said to Virginia, I'd rather cover, a smaller number of things fairly thoroughly and let people have time to ask questions about those, versus sort of cover a whole range of things and leave you confused about everything. The last thing I really want to present to you are some resources that are available to you, and I encourage you to write these down either for yourself or for your staff. There's a website called headsup.org.au. It is the result of alliance between government, business, and mental health organizations. It was launched some 5 or 6 years ago, and it is great for organizations. And when I say great, when you go in there, everything is work related. So it talks about how to look after each other at work. They've got lots of videos you can look at to, and you might be able to do this online with your teams, just videos about how people with depression have coping strategies to manage their depression well. What I really think is invaluable at the moment for individuals everywhere is the Beyond Blue website. Now, they have a chat line, as does Lifeline. So people say to me, what's the difference? Why would I call one rather than the other? Historically, Lifeline was set up to help with suicide prevention. And so that's what they're most well known for. And they take a lot of calls from people who aren't having suicidal thoughts. And that's fine. They don't say, oh, I'm sorry, I can't do it. Yeah. So, but primarily, historically, that's what they were set up for. Historically, the Beyond Blue line was set up for helping people who are going through signs and symptoms of depression and anxiety, and for helping people who were concerned about people who were showing signs of depression and anxiety. Now, over the years that they've been open, which I think now is, 10, 12, I'm not sure how long, they've expanded their focus on suicide prevention as well. So in essence, call either organization. They're both 24/7. I know, quite honestly, personally, sometimes I thought, oh, I might call Beyond Blue. I just need a bit of help at the moment. And then I thought, oh, what's the point? They don't have any answers. They can't wave their magic wand. And I've still called them. And I've still felt better after I've called them. So please, if you ever think it might be helpful to call a support line, pick up the phone and do it. That's what they're there for. I also have very recently called Beyond Blue to get information about how I could best support a friend of mine. Because even though I'm Beyond Blue trained and I have a mental health first aid certificate, she and I are such close friends. I feel too close to help her. I've had countless conversations with her where I just can't seem to help her get unstuck. So I called Beyond Blue and I said, any ideas how I can help her? And they were fantastic. The lady Jenny, the lady I was speaking to, was fantastic. And she and I came up with some strategies, and I've implemented those strategies. I know I feel better, that I've done the most I can to help my friend. And I believe she's starting to respond to some of the strategies. So I trust you hear that I'm talking from my heart and with absolute sincerity to encourage you to use the supports that are available to you. I'm hoping we have had some questions come through, Maddie. I'm going to just wind up by saying that we've all heard this saying that says, you know, there's power in knowledge. And I have always believed, and never so more than now, that that's a load of rubbish. That I can have the knowledge that, if I didn't eat so many biscuits and cakes, I might lose a couple of kilos that I'd like to lose. And, if I exercise more often, I might be, you know, more fit and healthy. And, if I perhaps cut down on my alcohol consumption, my overall health might improve. So with that powerful knowledge in my head, what do you think I might do tonight, Maddie, in front of the TV? Sit down, open up a bag of chips, bottle of wine, start drinking, and whoa, look there, we had another kilo. Just knowing this stuff is enough. And of course it's not. It's not. You have invested the last almost hour of your life and some energy and some money, and I want you to get a return on your investment. So please take some action based on the information that we've covered with you today, and there you will get power. So take action. I do thank you so much for being here today. I'm going to hand over to you, Maddie, and see if there's any questions come through that we can help with.
We have had a couple questions come through. Just firstly, do you have any advice on the best way to support people who may have been stood down, but you yourself are still working? There's an element of survivor's guilt, so it would be good to know how to be there for colleagues.
Yes. Yeah, great question. Thank you for asking it. I'm going to suggest, let's see, I don't know how many things are going to come out of my mouth, but the first one is listen. And you might even say to your friend or your colleague, look, I wish I had answers. I don't. So really what I want to do right now is just listen. You know, just tell me anything and everything you want to talk about, because I'm here for you. The second thing I'd urge us all to be aware of is think of a time when someone has come to you, you've gone to someone with a problem, and you said, this is so upsetting to me, etc. And that person has turned around and said, I know just how you feel, or I understand just how you feel. I don't know about you, but if that's been said to me after I've just poured my heart out, part of me wants to kind of punch him a bit and say, no, you don't know how I feel, because that's the truth of it. I'm glad you're aware that you might be feeling this survivor guilt, and be compassionate with yourself, because if you didn't have your job and they still had theirs, you wouldn't want them feeling guilty or bad. So be equally compassionate to yourself. Be aware of avoiding saying, I know just how that would feel, because you don't. The other thing that can happen when we say that, Maddie, is we say, I know, I understand how you feel, because when it happened to me, blah, 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 I might relate an experience of where I got sacked from a company 10 years ago. And now, you see, as I go on, it's now my story, and we're talking about my problem. And you don't want to do that with your friend or your colleague. You want the story to stay with them. So even saying something like, I can't imagine how you feel. I'm really sorry. I just can't imagine how that feels. And what, if anything, can I do to be supportive of you? What, if anything, can I do to support you. Maddie, how does that sound? And have I answered that, do you think?
Yeah,
So
I think that's great.
the person can type back into the chat window about whether that's the case or not.
Yes, great.
Yeah.
All right, I'll move on to the next question. So as work from home and isolation drags on, I'm wondering if you have any tips on what to do on those days where you're just not feeling up to it. I'm discovering deadlines are becoming harder to meet as my workflow becomes more self-directed and the monotony of home isolation sets in. Any tips on managing a stressful workload during stressful times would be great.
Great. Okay. Couple of tips. And again, try before you sigh. You never know what could work. I'm sharing some things that I'm doing for me, and I'm also sharing some things that I've learned from my researching on the internet now. One tip is there used to be that thing, well, it still is around, called the Pomodoro technique or something. And you could even buy a little apple that had like a timer inside it. But heck, we all have timers on our phones, so let's just use those. The original technique was set the timer for 50 minutes and work for 50 minutes and then have a 10-minute break. Well, when I started this day in, day out, working from home, looking at the screen, no contact with human beings, person to person, 50 minutes sounded like a real long time. So I thought, okay, what's manageable? And that's the key. I want you for yourself to decide what feels manageable for you. Because where I started was 30 minutes, but if that feels unmanageable for you, I don't want you to go into overwhelm and go, oh, that technique won't work. So if you think you could get something done and it feels manageable, set your timer for 10 minutes. And so, because how it helps us is in our psychological processing of it all, in our psyche, our brain says, oh, or my brain said, oh, Sandi, you can do 30 minutes. That's okay. All right, you go, girl. And I knew in 30 minutes when that timer went off, I could go, yay, me. And then I got up and I did some stretches, or I might, if I didn't have a pressing deadline, I'd say, I'm going to read the next chapter of my novel, whatever kind of reward I could give myself. Now, I started at 30 minutes. I'm now up to a full hour, because I honestly think all of us need to be getting up from this, moving away from the screen for at least 5 minutes every hour. So now I'm up to an hour and I reward myself with 15 or 20 minutes, whatever I can afford. The other thing with your deadlines that I'd suggest is, let's suppose you have a deadline for a week, a Friday. I'm just looking for a blank piece of paper, which I can't find right this minute. But I can use I can't use the back. I would have a blank piece of paper and I'd put a line about 2/3 the way across, and I would just brainstorm all of the steps that I need to take, all of the tasks I need to complete to reach that deadline. And then I would, if you can, get 5 different colored pens or 5 different highlighters and commit to yourself, okay, which one am I going to tick off on Monday? Which ones of these am I going to tick off on Tuesday? And set yourself those short, manageable chunks of time to just keep chipping away at it, and you'll get to the goalpost. Maddie, was there anything else in that question that I sort of haven't addressed? It was a great question. I just remember it was long, and I'm hoping I've remembered.
Sandi, I think too, you brought up one of those ideas when you were saying flexibility, and I think that's important. We've set a roster for people to work to, but possibly some people work better if they're self-timing their work. So that's a really good point. And the other thing is where you suggested we're all on the screen actually working together for an hour, and that sort of thing could also just help to keep people on track. So I think you've already covered those two great points.
Well, the other thing I'd say is maybe the reward, the person who asked this question, Maddie, maybe the reward is you actually schedule a virtual coffee with someone. You go, okay, I'm going to schedule a virtual coffee with Madison and at 10:30 today, and I'm going to go gung-ho for 2 lots of 1 hour with a 5-minute break between them until my virtual coffee with Madison. And we're going to sit, we're going to chat about anything except work.
That's terrific. That's terrific. And there was a question too, Sandi, whether you will share your slides at the end of this?
No, I won't
No.
be.
Okay, that's all right. No, that question.
And
That's
just
fine.
one last question, a good one to end on. It was, what is your favourite oxygen mask activity, Sandi?
Oh, mine. Well, my favorite oxygen mask activity is talking with people. And I'm finding some of my friends, and we can't go out to dinner. We can't go to live bands and stuff. I'm finding some of them are very hesitant, reticent to, resistant to using video conferencing. And I've said to them, I've paid for it. You don't have to, we can be on there for hours. Let's have dinner together. So personally, that's the one for me. That, and I do a lot of craft work. So I make greeting cards, and I do scrapbooking, and fundamentally, the oxygen mask activities ideally are things that make us forget about everything else. And I find when I talk with friends face to face, and when I do my craft work, I forget about everything else.
Terrific. Were there any more questions? No.
I think we've pretty much covered them all.
That's good.
A good time.
We'd love feedback from people too. So before they sign off, if you could just give us a couple of words on how you've found this session, which I just think was outstanding. Sandi, you have not let us down. You've been really wonderful. Thank you. It's a very, very warm and personal interaction, and we do appreciate it. I think it's a perfect example of the sort of thing we need to be doing together with each other. So that's terrific. So really, I would just like to say we have another presentation with Sandi next Tuesday at 1:30, which is You're Still a Professional, and that is for your team. That's your staff. And we want to create certainty, help you to keep focused and connected, look after their mental health and physical health, and learn how to balance reality with possibility to stop some of that, those issues of concern. Sandi will come up with helpful resources, and also she will design for the participants their own personal mental health plan. So I think it'll be a very valuable session. We'd love you and any of your colleagues to join us next Tuesday. Details will be on our website for that. So Sandi, once again, thank you so much. I'll let you go. Yes.
Yeah, if I could add one more thing to that, just to distinguish between what we've covered today and what we're covering next week. So today I've talked a little bit about legal responsibilities. I've talked a lot about the issues for you as a manager or a business owner that you need to consider in terms of keeping your team motivated and productive and mentally healthy, and a little bit for the manager at the end there about how to keep yourself mentally healthy. Next week's session is all about the individual. Now, there may be CEOs, there may be business owners, general managers on there, there may be administration clerks, IT people, anybody. We all need to look after our own mental health. So this is a very personal session. This is it's all about you, and what each and every one of us can do, needs to do, to make sure that we come out of the other end of this, whenever that is, being as mentally strong as we can be. Because I don't know about you, Virginia and Madison, but I'm going to be going to a lot of great parties and kissing and hugging, and I want to make sure I'm physically and mentally ready for it. So that's the key. I just wanted to make sure, Virginia, people were really clear on the difference between today and next week.
That's great. Well, I've had some wonderful complimentary remarks here about it. It was great to ease the stress with this presentation. And also one of the attendees has already said they've shared some of the tips with their team, so that there could be nothing better than sharing that. Yeah. So Sandi, once again, thank you very much. Maddie, thank you for all your help, and to everyone who's participated, thank you so much for your support. Please share the words that ACBC is back with our fabulous events, and we look forward to seeing you next week. Thanks very much. Farewell.
Stay safe. Stay well.
Stay
Bye.
safe. Bye.